It was okay, it was great.
All right.
And it's alcohol, it was disgusting. But it wasn't like,
Hey, welcome back. Okay, so like I said, we got about 20 minutes before court, but I can cover most of this. I knew this was going to be a short class anyway. So this is a concept that I'm using quite a bit that I refer to as probing range. The idea here being, so when people try to engage range, there's often, and again, there's this kind of urgency where I have to get to range faster, which means I'm going to try to like run into range, or worse yet, like jump into range. And so what this does, and again, you were asking about drills before, this is one of those things that is a concept. It is not a drill. Okay? And for what we're doing with this, we do need to do this in live combat. And this is a concept in which your opponent should not know that you are working on this. Okay? Because the whole idea of probing range, it's a test, right? So, Tristan, come on over here.
finally something.
Yeah, that's your own fault. Okay, so we're talking about getting to range and establishing range. What I'm looking for as I do this probe, as I take a step in. Oh, look what you did.
Gave you a nice lean.
That was neat, right?
Yeah.
So the whole point of probing range is this is simply data collection, right? This is purely observation. You have no intention of actually throwing a shot. You're just trying to see how fighters respond, okay? And as we're doing this, as you're doing these probes and you're testing this out, it's not how does Sean respond when I do this, how does Tristan respond to this, how does a fighter in general respond to what we're doing, okay? So as I bring range to you, there are basically 3 responses that I can get from you, okay? And those come down to animal instinct, fight, flight, or freeze, right? So if I take a step into range, you kind of lean back just a little bit. You didn't exactly freeze, but you went to flight response, okay? If I take a step in and you fire at me, right? That is a possibility. If I take a step in and you just walk up, right? And that's what we're looking for. I'm gonna sit out here in my range, take a step. There you go. Yeah, right, okay? So as we're doing this, knowing that those are the 3 responses, okay? Of those responses, what is the worst possible thing that can happen to me when I bring range? Someone throws a shot at me, right? So now that I know that that's as bad as it can get, I'm not surprised when I step into his range and he fires a shot at me. I'm not like, oh my God, he's throwing a shot. Like, I'm aware of that. And again, as we're doing this, you're doing this in live combat, and you're practicing this, you're just testing it out. It's like, take a step, oh, he fired at me. That's interesting. Oh, now he's running away from me. And again, this is all just simply data collection. And again, this is a concept, not a drill. And in order to get a correct or a true response from him, they need to not know that this is what we're doing. Right, so it's not a partner drill like the other drills that we were doing, okay? So when we can finally get comfortable with the idea that he can throw and that's the worst possible thing that can happen and we're okay with that, now we're not just okay with that as a possibility. Now I want to find where do I need to be in order for him to feel like he can throw at me. So now I'm probing to find out what do I need to do to elicit that as a response, to make him throw at me. Because when we're looking at blows that are coming in at us, we need to account for 2 factors. We need to account for when and where, okay? So if I can put him in a position where he can throw at me, I am then dictating the when. And if I can dictate one of those, or if my opponent gives me one of those variables, they sit there and look at you and they're like, that leg looks good. If you're going to tell me that that's where you want to go, I can then dictate the when, and now I have both parts of that, right? So the whole idea of probing is like, where do I have to be to him feel like he can throw, okay? Okay? So the extension from there is, where do I need to be for him to feel like he has to throw? Because now, if I can get into that position, right, if I can get into a position where he feels like he has to throw, now he is responding from sort of a panic reflex. Because now it's really like, oh, he's way too close, I should do something. Right? And by doing that, we were talking about that yesterday, right? Kind of get into that position, and while you are responding well to what I'm doing, you're still responding. And when you're responding, you're doing that from almost an emotional or kind of rote muscle memory. You're just like, oh, I should do something, and you got to get it off there. And we can just use that test, and we can use that probe to just where do I want to be, and how do I get him to respond, and what do I have to do to make him respond? So again, it's like you're not just okay with the idea that he's going to throw at you. You're actually trying to make him throw at you at that point. Does that make sense?
Yep, as long as you're ready to accept, right?
What's that?
Triggering the bull and then missing the block.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're going to trigger it.
So, have you used some test? Have you used some probe? I'm your opponent. Probe some range.
So how does he probe everything? Probes the step.
See, right there, I felt like I had to throw. He got into a position where I was like, ooh, this bad. Right? And again, because he's doing that test and he's pursuing range, he's bringing range to me. I'm the one I am having to respond to what he's doing. Right? Right? Sure. One of the ways I manipulate range, Lars was talking before about this kind of shift here. I don't quite do that. One of the things I do is I do what I call a basketball pivot. Like in basketball, if you get the dribbling, you get the double dribble, you hold on to it, you are allowed to pivot on one foot, right? In order while you're keeping the ball. So I do a basketball pivot. So from here, and just do that. It costs me nothing. And again, that's a test. Pull that out there. So if I'm here,
Watch the shift.
yeah. I can pull right into here. Yeah. And he feels like that's the pull. And again, so when you're doing this as a concept, what this allows us to do is it gets us more comfortable with pursuing range and with manipulating range, because when we're exercising this as a concept, there's no intention for you to throw a blow at all. You're not stepping into that range for the purpose of getting to a thing. You're just doing it just simply for observation, just to simply how fighters respond. And the more you can do this, you can just like, let me take a step and see what you're gonna do. And a lot of, and oftentimes, a lot of people have, similar responses. So if you can hit that probe and get them to respond, pretty good chance you can get them to respond the same way on the next step. So you can take that probe and be like, that's interesting, do that again. And again, even if it is firing at you, and I can do from here. Okay. Right? So honestly, that is the basics of the concept. If any of you want to kind of come out and walk through that a little bit and do some probing, you're welcome to. I know that was kind of short, but that's the essence of this. Yes.
How would that work when you've got a separation range? So a clay-fist shield.
Range is range.
Range is range, but like if I'm a glavesman trying to pull a certain boardsman into throwing at me, I was just trying to work through it earlier. Before I was like, I'm less looking for them to throw at me for the flight and for the fight response. I'm more looking to get them to come at me as opposed to
The bull.
Okay.
and try to encourage them to
How about you, as a glaive fighter, pursuing range
yeah,
to get what you want,
yep,
rather than trying to get them to come to you? Does it make sense? A lot of times in range, when we're doing this range manipulation, if I've got somebody that like wants to play the deep range or just will not absolutely let me establish range, then yes, if you're not going to let me walk in and take my range, and I'm pretty good about getting to where I want to be, but if you're just not going to let me take that range, I do then have to entice you into my range. But the idea of probing that, I mean, that's where you're going to find that out. If you take a step into a range that is ideal for you, and you see how your opponent responds, if they're just running away from you because they don't want to get poked in the face, right? If they're just going to keep running away from you, then yeah, maybe you do kind of pull that back. And maybe part of that probe is what happens when I do give you more space, or again, what do I have to do to get you to come into my space?
do what I want to do,
Right.
What I want you to do.
But I would say as a concept, even with the glaive, this is a thing that you can do to encroach the range to see how your opponent's going to respond. Because as you get closer to your opponent, again, the conventional wisdom of fighting a glaive is you jump them and you throw a shit ton of wraps, right? So if you bring that range to me, like, oh, okay, well he's here, so I can just start throwing. And that's the thing. You can step into a range that is better for you, and if your opponent decides to throw at you, that's information. That's data, right? And that's the whole point of this exercise of probing range, is just collecting data and just kind of cataloging. And again, it's not how does Sean respond or how does Nathan respond. It's like, how do fighters in general respond? And this is something I do all the time. You probably saw it quite a bit last night. It's like, where do I want to be? What are you going to do? How are you going to respond? That's an interesting response. Let me see if I can get you to do that again. And what it does is it reduces this urgency of establishing range. Because as you do that test and that probe, you can like fairly casually establish range and get to where you want to be. Because like I said, like early on when we talk about establishing range and getting into where you want to be, there is this an urgency and this adrenaline, and we're trying to do it faster, and we're trying to gain space faster. And as you've heard me say all weekend, it's like we don't need to do things faster, we need to do things better. And by taking this probe, you're able to better see what is actually happening in the fight instead of what you want to happen in the fight. And anytime we can see the fight more accurately and we can respond to what is actually happening in the fight, we're always better off, because again, now we're making better decisions about what we're doing. And this is a thing that you can just do to take that probe, to kind of reduce the need to be into range, and you just kind of play with it. Again, it's a concept, not a drill. You just have to, and ideally, your opponent should not know that you're doing it.
When you're fighting Timmer a lot, you both do that, and then there's something that happens, and then you're both like you're on. Is there a specific thing that you guys are looking for that triggers that, or is it more of a feel thing where it just feels like the right time?
It's
After how many years of fighting together?
Okay, you notice we're both trying to jockey for that position, and we're both not intentionally, but. And there it is. There's mine. Whoop, I'm here. My defense is here, but I stepped back as he stepped in. And subsequently, go ahead. There it is. Block, in, slide, and it's subtle. It's not a, oh, I gotta get out. It's just, and what we're looking for is that hesitation, that moment, that part of the chess game where we now have taken control of the center of the board. It can't be equated to the fight, but the truth of the matter is it's only going to be there for a minute. And a second. If you're lucky. And then what are you going to do to capitalize on it? How can I take advantages? Because in less than a second, it will be gone. And so yes, actually that's a really good question because once again, His Grace and us all fight very well, and this is the stuff that we do. It isn't just slugfest. It is let's work on this. Let's work on the concept. Let's work on range manipulation, shot manipulation, body manipulation.
Yep. And you know, Octa likes to say he likes to ride the wave and get in the marsupial patch and all that, but everything he's doing, there is the probing range.
Absolutely.
All the
All day
time.
long.
It's like, you know, it's like what do I have to do to be able to get in that pocket? Like, are you gonna let me there? You know, and that starts with here. There are a number of ways in which you can kind of do those tests and see where that's at. Duke Branos and Duke Ronwalder out in the mid-realm, they tend to do that testing and that probing more with their hands. You'll see them out here in the garden, they'll do a little flick to see how you're going to respond to it. They tend to do it more with their hands. I tend to do it more with my feet. Yeah, we'll just take a step in there. It's like, and again, as you're practicing this at fighter practice, this gives you an opportunity to like just test it out and just play with it. And there's no concern, there's no intention for you to throw a shot at all. It is strictly data collection, and you don't necessarily want to, you know, run your entire fight like this all night long. But you can definitely take some time with a variety of opponents and just like see how people respond. And again, it just gets you better about recognizing different responses. And then, as Timur was saying, when you see that response, when do I go on it? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Any questions? All right, I think I'm going to leave it with that. So I knew this was going to be kind of short, but thank you guys for hanging out.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.